Yes, folks, Romford is back. The Romford Film Festival is back. We had the horror festival back in February, March time. That was awesome. And now the main festival, as we like to call it, is upon us. It's coming to us on Friday, the 23rd, 24th of May, through to the Tuesday, the 29th, I think it is. Packed days. We've got about 3 or 4 different screens on the go. We're showing over 150 movies. But I am extremely happy today to be sat with the director of one said movie, which is Remi Milligan, Lost Director, a mockumentary of sorts, but we will talk a little bit about that. And we have director Samuel Lodato here to talk about it. So Samuel, thank you for joining me. And how are you this fine day?
Well, thank you for having me, and I'm really excited to be able to talk to you, and really excited about the festival as well. I'm going to try and make as many days as possible and binge on as many films as I can.
We've got a cracking selection this year, absolutely. It seems to be each year we just get like the quality just gets better and better and better. And as I said to you before we started doing this, your feature just absolutely just put a massive smile on my face. It really made my day when I watched it. So I really couldn't wait to talk to you, and I can't wait for everyone to see it. You will be able to see it on Sunday, the 26th, I believe it is. It's the little ticker things down the bottom of the screen there. Sunday, the 26th of May, the 9:30 to 11:30 slot on screen 2. And of course, when you are there, Samuel, and we show the movie, you'll be able to do your Q&A on stage. But one thing that I love about doing the remote things is that I get to ask the odd question you might not get asked on stage. So I want to start with, let's jump back a little bit, not too far, and let me know a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background, and how you came into the filmmaking game, and why the hell you would do it.
Wow, what a question. I mean, I'd say I fell in love with film when I was about 14 and too young to have watched the film Taxi Driver. Excuse me, I've got sore throat. Which, as you know, is an 18. That made me, fall in love with film. And I've been, working on short films for the last 10 or 11 years. And time flies. And, before I realized it, I was in my mid-30s. And I was like, if I'm going to make a feature, I need to do it now. And that's when I looked around and I had this idea for Remi Milligan, which I'd put on the back burner. It was originally for a short film. And I thought, this is the one. So, look, my background has always been in film. I did study English literature and creative writing at uni. I've got formal training in sound and lighting. So a bit of a cocktail of things, but cinema for me has always been the one, really.
Absolutely. And I did notice you quickly mentioned there that you put this one on the back burner for a while, and the on your IMDb and going through your listings, there is a little bit of a gap between a few shorts that you made and then this feature coming out. Is it safe to say that Remi Milligan was a labor of love and it was 100%, it just in the end needed to be a feature?
Yes, and I mean, it took so long to get it off the ground because it's completely self-funded.
Yes.
I did all kinds of things to raise money for this film. I took clinical trials, so I went and had like a medicine for, I can't remember what it was for like flu or something, and they used me as a guinea pig for 3 weeks. So that made me about $4,000, which is only a fraction of what the film cost. So a lot of time was spent raising money for sure. Then, of course, not to bring the tone down, but we did have the pandemic, Brexit, which, because we had an international cast and crew, a lot of people during that time, they had to head back home and figure out what they were going to do, get new arrangements. And so that had an impact. So, you're right. It took, before we started shooting this film, I think there was about a 5 or 6 year gap between that and my previous film. So it was all dedicated to Remi in some way, whether it's development or pre-production. But yeah, a lot of it was trying to get the money basically for this film.
So any superpower side effects through crowd? You know, like, did you get any awesome side effects or?
No, unfortunately not. No, just it's a bit lethargic here and there, and yeah, that was it. No, unfortunately, no special powers. No.
I mean, what's the point if you're not getting a special power out of it? Eh? But no, yeah. So this movie, Remi Milligan's, it's a mockumentary. I don't know why you would go for this kind of film for your first feature. You are a little bit crazy for that. So it's kind of like that Spinal Tap kind of vibe, that Burn Hollywood Burn kind of vibe. Remi Milligan reminds me of the kind of directors we've seen before, like the Ed Wood movie, sort of just that kind of style of thing. What made you want to make this in that style, and where did the story in your head come from?
That's a good question. Yeah, I've always loved those kind of filmmakers. You mentioned Ed Wood, and there's so many more. And I think what distinguishes these filmmakers from, because bad films exist, but then there's good bad films, and these were makers of good bad films, as so to speak. And I was just fascinated by how kind of genuine they were at trying to actually just create a film, and you can see the passion kind of still comes through, even though these productions aren't that great. So I always thought, I'd want to make a film about that kind of character or that kind of figure, and so that was the original idea for this 3-minute short. And then I thought, okay, well, if we go down that kind of mockumentary docu-fiction route, then we have to create this filmmaker's body of work, right? So where do we begin? And a lot of it was just drinking a bit too much beer with some mates and coming up with the craziest titles for films like Killer Pencil, and just thinking, okay, what would that look like? So that was it in essence. That's where his films came from. We came up with these ridiculous titles, and then reverse engineered a film out of those. But yeah, I mean, I've always loved both those kinds of filmmakers, as I said, but also mockumentaries. Spinal Tap. I mean, obviously the Blair Witch Project. Not just the film, but also the way it was marketed, for me, was like really interesting. Back in, I'm obviously showing my age here, but back in the day when we didn't have social media, and they released this entire campaign where people for a few weeks thought that this might have been a real thing that had happened. And so I love the kind of the potential, really. And one of it does come back to budget. So we thought, how do we get relatively high production values on a minuscule budget? There was no way that we could go down a traditional kind of feature fiction route. And I thought, okay, if we get a docu-fiction mockumentary, we can find opportunities to kind of raise the production values. So for example, in the interviews, we have a multi-angle setup, which isn't really, like, we ran the interview twice from 2 different angles, so we didn't have 2 cameras. But we thought, a viewer will watch that and think, oh, okay, it's like Netflix style, kind of glossy and that kind of thing. So again, budget, it was again another driving force. All of those good things really went into it.
So you mentioned a couple of Remi's movies in there while you were talking there. The Killer Pencil. We also have Satsuman, which is the best ever name for a movie, by the way. And that's a lot of different aesthetics, because it seems like Remi has a lot of different styles and a lot of different genres. So you're making these shorts within your feature kind of thing. Like, how was that? How did you tackle that aspect?
Oh, that was a blast, and I think that's probably my favorite part of the film, because, as you said, we got to try all these different genres and styles. We used different cameras for each film. So Killer Pencil was actually shot on VHS.
Nice.
Yeah, so that came obviously with its pros and cons for our cinematographer. and that was great. And yeah, straight through to Satsuman as well. Different cameras, different styles, as you said. And no, I love that. That was my favorite kind of thing, and it was also almost a crash course in different genres as well. I'd never done, a schlock kind of horror film before, and so Killer Pencil kind of let me loose in that respect. Greek Connection, that kind of thriller detective style kind of stylings, 80s kind of stylings. I relished it really. It was good fun.
Would you ever, and this is probably a bit of a strange question, but would you ever actually make one of them and like maybe as a short or something and actually release it?
Do you know, I probably would, if someone came up to me, an investor said, look, we'll give you a decent budget to do real justice to one of these films, then yeah, for sure. I don't know if I could pick one off the spot because they've all got potential, I think, as features.
They're all brilliant.
Yeah, so I'm not really sure. Song and Dance in Guantanamo Bay, obviously a musical set in Guantanamo Bay, so that'd be an interesting one. They all have something going for them, but for sure, if someone came along and said, look, let's turn this into a feature, here's some money, go crazy, it would be hard for me to say no.
And how did you go about casting for the movie? Because everyone is pretty much on point, from your talking head characters giving us the story, the background, to your actual in-scene characters with Remi and his DOP and everything like that. So how did you go about casting these?
Yeah, that was quite a long process, and I basically handpicked everyone, and I held auditions for the roles. We did self-tapes as well. For me, this was really important because the film, a lot of was hinging on this, right, on the performances. I mean, I guess that's true of all films, but in particular this film, because especially the interviews, we were trying to play it completely straight. And so I needed actors who understood comedy or subtle comedy, but that weren't overtly kind of funny in those interviews, especially. And so the way I sold it is, especially when I was trying to look for the cast, is I would contact them, and if I thought that they'd interviewed well, I'd explain the story to them as though it was a real story. So I wouldn't say, we're shooting a mockumentary, docufiction, whatever you want to call it. It was, a couple of years ago, I discovered this filmmaker. His name was Remi Milligan. And he was, he's not well known, but I want to make a film about, and, they would kind of buy into it. And then I would either let them put two and two together, and sometimes they'd email me 2 days later and go, is this all made up? Or the conversation, yeah, exactly. Or the conversation would go, it like lead to a inevitable kind of point where I would then have to say yes, and I would need you to, act in one of his films, and then the penny would drop. So, but yeah, casting hugely important. I'm very lucky to have found such good actors. The actress who plays Remi Milligan's mother,
wonderful.
Yeah, incredible performance, and amateur actress. So that was her first role. She'd been a teacher all her life, and then she retired and got bored and thought, let me try my hand at acting. And that was her first role, and was incredible. So yeah, I owe a lot to the cast, really. They did a lot of the heavy lifting, that's for sure.
And in terms of it being a mockumentary, so there is a little bit of satire to it as well. How much improvisation were they allowed, or was it like stick to the script?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we had multiple scripts. So we had the short films were scripted, Then we scripted the behind the scenes for those short films. And then the actual interviews themselves, we didn't have scripts for them, but we had full 30, 40-page character treatments for the actors. And so it would be like full background, this is where your character grew up, this is, their motivations, this is their relationship to Remi, and just they could really take it all in. And then on the day, they'd be giving a rough outline of the questions that they would be asked. But everything outside of that was kind of, improvised, as you said. Obviously, there were kind of parameters that we had to, certain markers that we had to hit, for sure. But otherwise, they were given a lot of freedom. The behind the scenes as well, that became quite an organic thing where our actual behind the scenes of what we were shooting started feeding into those behind the scenes. It got very meta and ridiculous, but something funny would happen also, or we were like, oh, we need to put that in. So we had a script, and then we would, also pile on other stuff. I would say a lot of it was improvised, but there was a method definitely to the madness.
What would you say the movie's been getting shown in some festivals and it's out there and people are seeing it, and I've not read any negative comments about this thing, which must be amazing for you to see as well, because everybody seems to universally love it, and I know us at Romford did. But any director can take all of that praise and adulation, but they will still watch their movie and see everything that's wrong with it, and they'll be able to point those things out on the screen. So what I like to ask is there any particular point in the movie, anything that you see up on the screen that you're massively proud of? You think to yourself, you know what, that was a tough day, but we nailed that scene.
Yes, that's a very good question. So the Greek Connection, that was a very interesting shoot. So we turned up to this abandoned warehouse in Tower Hamlets. We'd literally the night before got clearance from the police because we were going to run around with spray painted BB guns, which I got a slap on the hand, by the way, by the police, because they said you can't do that. They look too realistic. There was a canal running along the back of this warehouse as well. So, canal boats and tourists and that kind of thing. And they're like, we can't have, a scantily clad actress running around and, burly men chasing her with guns and stuff. So that was a challenge in its own right. And thank you to the council and to the police as well for, letting me have that warehouse on that day. But once we actually got to the warehouse, our camera broke.
Oh.
And this was the VHS camera that we'd shot Killer Pencil on. So it was, a bit of it'd taken a beating, let's say. But the camera stopped working, and so we got another camera on a bike to us, which took about an hour. By the time that camera got to us, we then realized that it was missing a battery. So we then had another bike come with the batteries for this camera, and all in all, we lost about 4 hours. I only had the warehouse for 8 hours, and we were basically forced to throw the script away. And that's when we truly improvised. And I looked at my DOP and I said, look, we've only got this for 4 hours. This warehouse is amazing, like really atmospheric. There's pigeon shit everywhere. I don't know if I can say that one. So. But okay, cool. It was an amazing place. And I was like, it's been so expensive and I don't have money to shoot in this place again. So we had to make those 4 hours count. And that was absolutely manic. We basically had 10 shots. We're like, okay, in this shot, the actor goes here, that's where we go, shoot, done, looks good, yes, move on. And it was completely unorthodox and not like how we normally shoot, which is a lot more measured and, storyboards and so on and so forth. So that was something, when I look at it, I go, oh, actually, that looks, from where I'm sitting, it looks quite nice and it looks quite slick. Formally, I think it's one of the better short films in terms of how it looks. So yeah, I would say that was my proudest but also most stressful kind of moment in the whole film.
I find that a lot when I ask that question, because I do like to ask that question, but I do find a lot of the times it's like it's a scene or a moment that was like incredibly hard to get done. And I tend to find that even though you guys know what you went through and the fact that it's maybe not up to what the standard you wanted it to be or anything like that, you're still able to sit back and go, man, that looks pretty sick. We did that.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Pat yourself on the back. Do we have any intentions to do anything else with Remi? Any more feature shorts? Are we getting more from him?
No, I can't say we will get any more Remi. Yeah, we're just going to leave it at that, and people will have to, decide in terms of what happened to him.
Yeah.
Obviously, I can't reveal too much, but they'll have to make their own minds up, and that's open to their interpretation. But yeah, no, sadly, no more plans to do anything else with Remi.
Well, I'm gonna tell you now. I'm gonna be starting one of those YouGov pages to get me found and a Kickstarter and everything like that. So, but no, honestly, Samuel, we're going to start wrapping up in a second. But I genuinely thought this was absolutely brilliant, and it's a mockumentary or a feature that I can't wait for the Romford audiences to see. I think the Romford audience needs to see this movie. So again, Sunday the 26th, 9:30 to 11:30 slot, Screen 2, absolutely 100% check it out. But before you go, what else are you working on? Is there anything you can tell us about? You're going to be with us, so grab a beer by the bar with Mr. Peter Blunden. You'll appreciate that.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. What else am I working on? Yeah, there's a few things floating around. There's a proof of concept that we want to get off the ground for another feature. This is going to be completely different, and it's actually about a youth worker who works with a group of troubled youth. So even as I say that, I realize how like polar opposite that is to what we did with Remi. But yeah, there's a few things that we've got on that, on the hob, as it were, ready to crank up the heat. Yeah,
I love that. And before I get you to pimp yourself, which is something I like to do at the end, and not in a sexual way, but it's what I like to get to do. I have a question for you, and it's a bit of a regular question that a lot of people get asked. It's the old desert island question. So basically, you're on a desert island. You've got one movie for the rest of your life. But my twist on this is that you can only have one movie, and it's a remake of a movie that you've made. What movie would you choose to remake and you get to watch for the rest of your life? I know it puts you right on the spot. That's why I love it.
Wow, that's a crazy question. I would remake Short Circuit.
Oh,
which was one of my childhood. Like it felt like it was on all the time, and I love that film. And I don't know if they've remade it. Probably not. I don't know. But yeah, I would probably remake that and take it with me to.
That's a good call, actually. I like that. And before you go, let people know where they can find you. Let people know where they can find Remi Milligan, the movie, of course. The director, we don't know. But let people know where we can find it and what's happening with Remi Milligan going forward.
Cool. Yeah, so you can find us on Instagram at Lodato Studios. That's quite active on that, where we post a lot of behind the scenes, shout outs, and kind of what's happening next. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about other festivals, but we are screening in Tuscany next month. We'll also be at Ramsgate Film Festival. In the States, so in the US and Canada, we've been picked up for distribution. Nice. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but we have. So and then obviously we'll see how it plays out in the UK and Europe, and that's about it. I would say if people are interested, check out milliganisalive.com, which is the fan site created by Remi's fans, and yeah, you might get a bit of a kick out visiting that website. So
I already kind of love that. I mean, I was already trying to figure out how I get to join the Remi Milligan Appreciation Society, but couldn't find it anywhere. But no, Samuel, thank you so much. Everybody watching this, everybody seeing this, if you're at the Romford Film Festival, again, Friday the 24th of May through to Tuesday the 29th, 100% check this movie out on Sunday the 26th. Check everything out, but I think you'll get a special kick out of Remi Milligan after all the depressing stuff we're going to put you through as well. Samuel, thank you so much for coming on and doing this. You're absolutely amazing, and I can't wait for people to see your movie.
thank you for having me, Kevin. Thank you.